mind and associated with feeling. Actually, the four dhyanas contain a. the aggregate of discrimination, b. the associated aggregate of volition. There are things not accompanying the mind and non-associated with feeling. Actually, with the exception of the formations dissociated from the mind but accompanying the mind. Formations contained in the four dhyanas, these are all the other formations dissociated from the mind and associated with the discrimination aggregate. Of the four dhyanas, the last three are not endowed with investigation and are not associated with analysis. In the first dhyana, there are 1. Things accompanying investigation but non-associated with analysis. 2. Things associated with analysis but not accompanying investigation. 3. Things accompanying investigation and associated with analysis. 4. Things not accompanying investigation and non-associated with analysis. There are things accompanying analysis but non-associated with investigation. Actually, the first dhyana contains a. bodily actions and vocal actions, b. formations dissociated from the mind and accompanying investigation, c. analysis. There are things associated with analysis but not accompanying investigation, namely, investigation. There are things accompanying investigation and associated with analysis, namely, the mind and mental events associated with investigation and analysis. There are things not accompanying investigation and non-associated with analysis. Actually, with the exception of the formations dissociated from the mind that accompany investigation, they are all the other formations dissociated from mind. The four dhyanas are all causes and conditions and constitute all the causes and conditions. In the first of the four dhyanas, there are 1. Things that follow upon an antecedent and constitute an antecedent condition. 2. Things that follow upon an antecedent and constitute an antecedent condition. 3. Things that do not follow upon an antecedent and do not constitute an antecedent condition. There are things that follow upon an antecedent but do not constitute an antecedent condition. This is the mind and mental events called to arise in a future existence. There are things that follow upon an antecedent and constitute an antecedent condition. This is the past and present mind. There are things that do not follow upon an antecedent and that do not constitute an antecedent condition. Actually, with the exception of mind and mental events that will arise in a future existence, these are the other minds and mental events of the future, physical and mental actions dissociated from the mind. It is the same for the second and third dhyanas. In the fourth dhyana, there are 1. Things that follow an antecedent but that do not constitute an antecedent condition. These are a. the mind and mental events called to arise in a future existence. b. the absorption of non-discrimination, arisen or to arise. 2. Things that follow upon an antecedent and that constitute an antecedent condition. This is the past and present mind and mental events. 3. Things that do not follow upon an antecedent and that do not constitute an antecedent condition. These are a. with the exception of the mind and mental events called to arise in a future existence, all the other minds and mental events of the future. b. with the exception of the formations dissociated from the mind and following upon an antecedent, all the other formations dissociated from the mind. c. bodily and vocal actions. The four dhyanas include bodily actions, vocal actions and formations dissociated from the mind. Some constitute conditions and do not have conditions. Others both have conditions and constitute conditions. These four dhyanas are also dominating conditions and constitute dominating conditions. All this is fully explained in the Abhidharma Vibhaga. The four trances according to the Mahayana. The Bodhisattva possesses the skillful means of trance, the characteristics of trance and the factors of trance. This has all been fully explained already in the context of the dhyana parameter. Question. In the present prajna paramitpadesa, you speak only of dharmas empty of characteristics. Then how is the bodhisattva able to produce trance or absorption on empty dharmas? Answer. The bodhisattva knows that the 5 objects of enjoyment and the 5 obstacles are the result of causes and conditions without intrinsic nature, empty and non-existent. Thus it is very easy for him to reject them. But under the influence of errors, beings are attached to ordinary pleasures and are guilty of abandoning the profound and wonderful happiness of dhyana. The bodhisattva experiences great compassion for these beings and practices trance and concentration. 1. Being attached to the object of mind, he avoids the 5 objects of enjoyment, rejects the 5 obstacles and enters into the first dhyana, which is great joy. 2. Suppressing investigation and analysis and concentrating his mind, he penetrates deeply into inner peace, obtains a subtle and wonderful joy and enters into the second dhyana. 3. Because this profound joy is distracting to concentrations, the bodhisattva avoids all joy, obtains a complete happiness and enters into the third dhyana. 4. Destroying all suffering and all happiness. Rejecting all sadness and all satisfaction as well as inhalation and exhalation, he adorns himself with a pure and subtle equanimity and enters into the fourth dhyana. This bodhisattva knows well the dharmas are empty and without characteristics, but as beings themselves do not know it, he resorts to the signs of dhyana in order to convert them. If the emptiness of dharmas truly existed in itself, we would not call it emptiness, and it would not be necessary to abandon the 5 objects of enjoyment to obtain dhyana, since, existing substantially, this emptiness would involve neither abandoning nor acquiring. But the empty nature of dharmas also being non-existent, you cannot raise the objection that you have just brought up by saying, how can the bodhisattva produce trance on empty dharmas? Single quote. Furthermore, the bodhisattva practices dhyana without being attached to grasping characteristics. And in the same way that a man swallows medicine to eliminate sickness and not because of its taste, so the bodhisattva practices dhyana for the purification of morality and the perfecting of wisdom. In each dhyana, the bodhisattva cultivates great loving kindness. In dhyana, the contemplation of emptiness does not take place, since it is a matter of overcoming the 5 objects of enjoyment. Gross errors and mistakes, it is necessary to resort to subtle but false subterfuges to destroy them, in the same way that a poison is required in order to destroy other poisons. End chapter 32.